Hello everybody. Today we're going to be building a web portal that integrates with FileMaker. We'll be using Vue.js and specifically Nuxt, an implementation of that. Kind of build on it, makes things a little bit easier for us. And what we'll be doing in our web portal is we'll basically be building something that allows us to view, log in as a user, see our invoices, and also see our line items. And so we've got a couple of users in here. We're just storing, instead of using FileMaker's native security, because typically the people accessing your web portal won't also have actual logins to FileMaker. You'll typically want records in FileMaker and that. And we're hashing the passwords so it's all secure, stored securely. So to get started, you will need a few things. You'll need to make sure that Node is installed. So we can do that like here. So Node and NPM are installed. When you install Node, NPM is installed automatically. And then you'll also want to make sure you have Git installed. After you've got that done, we can go ahead and start with the install. So I'm going to just get into my web directory. You can put these wherever you want. And I'm going to run a terminal command npx create Nuxt app, and then we'll just call this web portal. Alright, once that's loaded, we'll just set up a few settings. So project name, we'll just leave web portal, description's fine. I'll type in my name. We're going to use npm. We can install a UI framework if we want. They're all great, but I'm going to be using Boofy. And for the backend, you don't have to have any if you don't want, and you can just, if you want to use PHP, you can, but we're going to stick with a Node backend, and the reason for that is we'll also want Axios. I'll skip that and that. We're going to want this option right here, Universal SSR, server-side rendering. The reason server-side rendering is so important, and it's also, that's why we use Nuxt, is because it helps with your site's SEO optimization. There are website crawlers out there, and a lot of them do not work if your website requires JavaScript. So if you render it on the server and send that first, then the initial page load will work for the crawlers and it'll improve your SEO optimization. We'll be using VS Code, so we'll check that option. Alright, now that our project is installed, let's go ahead and just follow their guide to get started. So cd into our web portal, and then npm run dev. So this is actually going to spin up a client and a server. So this is our back end and this is our front end. And you need it basically spins up that so that you can do development a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and pull up a browser. And we'll go to that. And voila, we have our first Nuxt/Vue.js app. It comes with a couple pages. We're probably just going to cut all that out. So let's go ahead and get started with that. We'll open up Visual Studio Code. And here we are. So we'll get that open. And we'll just go over the directory real quick. Assets are where you're going to put anything like CSS, JavaScript, images, anything like that. And the nice thing about Nuxt is it has these readmes in each directory. And it kind of tells you what you should be putting in there. So it's kind of nice. Components, these are things that you'll be reusing throughout your different layouts. The layout is basically the overall theme of your site. So you could put navigation here if you wanted, the footer, the header, that sort of thing. Middleware, this is items that can run before pages, and They can load things, they can prevent you from accessing the page. They have a lot of great uses. Node modules we don't need to worry about. That's just where it installs a bunch of stuff. Pages, this is where we will actually put the pages. So this index page is going to load inside the default layout. So when we go here, it'll load that. And and let's actually install this. It's recommending that we install this Vueter extension. And you'll notice right now we have no color highlighting. If we install this, we'll be able to see this a little bit easier. So we'll give that a second. We'll keep going while that's installing. There we go. That's better. We'll kind of skip over plugins server. This is basically the main entry point for your website, and we'll be adding onto this quite a bit for our backend. For this particular example, we'll be doing everything inside this one file, but you would probably, the more you'd get, you'd want to kind of split this out into separate files to keep it a little more manageable. But for this example, we'll just kind of do it in one. Store, this is where we'll set up our Vuex store to keep our global state for our application. And then nuxconfig.js, this is where we can store a bunch of settings that'll be accessible either on the server or on the client front end. And then package.json is everything that's installed for either the client or the server side. So we'll be adding a few things here as well. So anyway, let's go ahead and just clean up our views a little bit. So I'm going to start by going to the default layout, and I'm just going to do a clean start. I don't really want any of this, so I'll just leave that outer div, and I don't really want any data right now, so we'll go to there to get rid of all that. And it reloaded and there's nothing there now, which is what we should expect. And then we'll clean up our pages for the index. We will just get rid of that. And all right. Let's go back to here. And I'm going to be copying some of this stuff out of previous examples, so you don't have to watch me type it all out. But let's start with our home page. So I'm just going to grab our data for our index.view and copy that out. Oops. Alright, so it's pretty simple. We're going to have a title, a subtitle, and then we're going to pull in an image from our assets folder. Right now it's saying it can't find that. I haven't input it yet. So let me download that. I'll save our image, and alright, there we go. So now we should have home page, except we don't have anything in here. We need to actually include a Nuxt. This is basically like view routers view there. So that just tells it this is where the data should go for the view. But we don't really have any navigation. We don't have a footer. It's very basic. So let's go ahead and update our default layout. So I'm just going to grab this again. So this is just some information or some components from Boofy, this bnav bar, the footer, a few different things. So when it loads, we have something in here which we can, let's see, yeah, we have a couple things in here. We're checking if if a user is logged in to determine whether we should show them this button, but we haven't built that yet. And then it's going to be, there we go. So we don't have the buttons yet, but we'll enable those again later. Okay. I'm also going to bring in just a little bit of CSS to style this a little bit better. And we're just giving it some padding at the top there, changing the color of our active links, giving some margin, etc. And then some page transitions when we're going between pages. Just a nice little effect. So there we go. We got some spacing. It's looking a little bit better. Right now, if we try to go to these, they're not created, so it's going to fail. But we do have links to them. So to create them, it's as easy as just going to our pages. And oops, we'll just create a new file called about.view. Oops. We'll rename that. All right, and yeah, you don't want to watch me type this either, so let me just copy that. And the way Nuxt works is it actually creates our router for us. So normally in Vue.js, you have to install Vue router, and then you would have to tell it about this route and which component to load. Nuxt just kind of does it for you, and you'll notice when I'm going between these pages, it's not reloading, and it kind of has that nice transition. But if I do a hard refresh, it still loads, and if I do view page source, it still has, this is not loading any JavaScript, but it still loaded everything that I need to show it here. All right, so we got that. So we kind of got everything we can do without touching the back end yet. And so that's kind of what's up next is the back end. I don't want to go over this too in depth because you could really use any back end you wanted. And so yeah, that's not really the point of this article about the back end, but I will go over it briefly. So we're going to be editing this file here. And the first thing we need to do is we need some way for people to log in. So we're going to be adding, in order to do that, we need to log into FileMaker, and in order to log into FileMaker to check to see if they entered the right information, we need to get an auth token with the Data API. So I'm going to just copy this function that I have called getAuthToken. So I'm just going to put this in here. Doesn't really matter where, it's just a function. And what it's doing is it takes in a couple of parameters, the request and response parameter, and then whether we want to force refresh the token. So when you're first logging in, you probably want to force refresh a new token. Other than that, so that way, if you've logged out and want to log in as someone else, it'll let you. Otherwise, it would just keep giving you the same token, and the system would keep thinking you're logged in as someone already, and you wouldn't get access to the new logins information. So that's what that is for. Default is false. We're going to default to giving you the existing token if it hasn't expired. So yeah, if the timestamp is less than the token's expiration timestamp and we have a token, we'll just return that, and we'll just set the comment header to authorization bearer token. So that's pretty easy. And then, but if not, if we haven't gotten a token yet, we'll get a new one. We're going to use the try catch method, and so we're going to set all of our data to this response, and we're going to wait for this promise to fulfill. So we're waiting for Axios, and we're going to be doing a post, and this is our URL. We're going to do basic auth to get just to get logged in the first time, and then you need the headers, content type, all this. So this token will wait for the response to finish, and then it will grab out the token, and then the token will set an expiration timestamp of 14 minutes in the future. It technically expires in 15 minutes, but we just do 14 minutes in the future, and then finally return the token. If along the way we had any errors, they would be caught, and then we would return the errors. If it was a response error, so a problem with the actual response, it would do that. Otherwise, if it's just a generic error, we would return that. So that's all working pretty good. And you'll also notice, well, no, we don't have that yet. So this function is good and all, but now we need some way to call it. So what we'll do is we will create we need a path in our router, basically, to create a login API, if you will, for the backend. So in order to do that, we just come in to our start function, and we'll just do it before this middleware here, and we'll just paste that in. So whenever the app does a post request to API/login, we will run this function and check to see if the user is logged in. You'll notice the first thing it does is it gets the token using our function that we just created. And it passes the request, the response, and I guess that should technically be true, because we always want it to force refresh. Once it's done that, then it just is going to run a script. And again, we're using the same kind of Axios await. So that's kind of how that all works. If it gets the script results, it returns that. Otherwise, it would return an error. So one thing that you're probably noticing, this config.fm database, we haven't actually set that up yet. So this is not going to work yet. But if you take a look, Nuxt is already importing our config right here, and it is this nuxt.config.js. So we can go in here and just add in whatever we want. So let me go ahead and copy some stuff out of my example file, and some of this stuff is going to be, you probably don't want to put in your Git repository, because it might change. You might have different credentials for your test environment, etc., etc. So you might not store this on the actual Git repository, because you want it different in each environment. All right, so now that we've got that set up, we can go back to here. Oops, not this one, this one. And so now we're importing all that data to our test example. All right, so now we have an endpoint API login that we can hit, and we should get a response. So now we need a page. Now we're going to want that login page so that we can access that and log in. So let's go ahead and do a login.view page in here. All right, and I'm just going to copy this whole thing, and we'll just go over it real quick. There's a lot of different pieces that have to be done in order to get any of this to work, but so we'll kind of go piece by piece, and we'll do the break fix method, because I can already tell you it's going to It's going to squawk at me when I try to come here. Oh, actually, let me come here. Okay, that's good. There are a few things that it's not going to work properly, though. Like, right, we don't have this mutation yet. Probably a few other issues that we got to correct. But yeah, let's actually go ahead and set up our store, because after we log in, we're going to need some place to store the actual information about the user. So we'll go to store, and we'll just make a index.js in our store. And let me pull this up. So this is actually going to be a fairly simple one. It uses Vuex behind the scenes, and this is the state. So right now we're only keeping track of the user once they log in. Initially starts as nothing. And then we want an action, and our action just on server first load, we're going to pull out of our request object. So this comes from Express itself, and we're going to commit right here the set user, which just updates our state with our payload. So this way, our session information that we have stored on the back end will be able to be transferred to the client. Otherwise, when you reloaded your page, you would lose all your state, so they would be logged in, then you'd click reload, and then they would no longer be logged in. So this runs automatically on first start. It'll grab information we've stored in our session variable for the auth user, and it will populate it here. So that's all very good. Up next, we need to... Alright, let's double check this. Let's see where we're at. Let's see what's broken. Surprisingly, nothing. Well, let's try this. Hit login. Okay, we got an error getting token. And if we look over here, let's see. Not set headers after they are sent to the client. I'll have to come back to that. One thing I know that we're not doing yet that we're going to have to is we need to install Express Session in order to basically save data. Right when we're doing when we're creating the auth token, we save some information to our session right here. Well, by default, that is not set up, so we would just go into here, we'll do Control-C to stop our command. I'll do npm install express / session, and you'll notice in our package.json it'll get added here. We have express session now. Alright, and then we'll just go back to npm run dev, and we can close that. And we're not quite done with that. We do need to do a little bit more setup to make sure that our session is we can save stuff to the session. So inside our server index.js file, we just need to import it. So we will just import it there. And this just pulls from the node modules folder, which is where we just installed it. And so we've done that, and now we need to set up basically a secret token so that we can encrypt this information. So we'll just add some room there. And so yeah, this right here would be your super secret key. It could be whatever you wanted. We'll just save that like that. And you'll notice it automatically reloads whenever you make changes to this index.js, which makes it convenient. All right, let's give this another shot. Error getting token. Let's see. This error originated either by throwing inside of an async function without a catch block. So yeah, this is going to happen when you're doing web dev. It's good to know kind of where to look, and it usually gives you some clues. So in this case, let's see. Well, we only have one server file, so I know it's somewhere in here we've got a mistake. Let's just kind of follow it. So when we try to log in, we're gonna grab this and try to log in and run a script. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's console.log our error variable here. My guess, I don't know what it is yet, actually. All right, I don't know if it reloaded. Let's just restart it just in case. All right, and we'll try to log in again. This time, cannot read property username of undefined. Okay, so that is a much better error message. So when it's trying to pull out information out of our request body, and that's basically post data is stored here, it's saying it can't read it. So yeah, we need to set up Express so that it can basically has access, and that we know that we're sending JSON data to our Express app. So we'll just do app.use body parser, which is built in, .json. Or sorry, that is not built in. We might need to install this. I'll include it here, but I believe we're going to need to stop this. npm install. All right, so we'll run our dev again. All right, let's try this again. Oops. All right, error getting token. Now what? Oh, Axios is not defined. Okay. So this one is actually already a node module that we have installed, but yeah, I have not imported this yet either. So that is one more thing we need. Luckily, the error messages are pretty good at telling you what's wrong. It's going to rebuild, and we should be good to go. There we go, logged in successfully. It actually tried to take us to invoices, but the page cannot be found, and we have no way to load it. So let's get that up and going next. We need some way to load invoices. So we need an endpoint for our invoices. So let me copy that again. And we'll just put this below this function. All right. So now we have an API endpoint where whenever we do a get to API invoices, as long as we are logged in, it will do a find of our user ID that we have saved in our session. So it'll do that find, and then it'll just return the response data. If there's any errors along the way, we'll just return a generic message of error getting invoices. You'd probably want better errors in a production system, but it's fine for this. So we have that. So we should be able to do API invoices. All right, we got an error. And the error is probably that we're not logged in, because we just restarted the server. But let's try this. So if we log in, there we go. Yeah, whenever the server restarts, it loses the session data. So we just had to log in again. And this is now pulling directly from our FileMaker system. So now it's just a matter of making an invoices page and pulling our data. So instead of doing another page file like we've been doing, like a page or an invoices.view, instead what we'll do is a directory called invoices. And then inside there, we'll do a file called index.view. Oops. There we go. And in our file, we're just going to, I'm just going to copy all this. All right. So let's kind of go over how this is working. We've imported and we actually don't even need to import that. All right, we're importing our Vuex component. Sorry, we're importing maps data function from Vuex, and then we're also importing a component, which we haven't actually built yet, so this will not work. And we're going to just load some data. So on mounted, we want to get our API slash invoices, and then we take the data and we just store it in this object here. So in this array. And we've got a few other things that are Boofy component wanted. What is the current page direction? How many per page do we want to show? And all that information is being set up in our B table, just a component that comes with Boofy. And then these are the different, what we want to display. So I believe, yeah, it's going to say this modal can't be found. No problem. We can just go to components, modal.view, and we'll get that. Okay. All right. So now it's saying we're calling a middleware that doesn't exist. So if you'll notice on our right here, I set it up so that it calls this protected middleware. And that's because we don't want just anyone to be able to come to this invoices and see anything. They have to be logged in first. So, and we can reuse this in multiple places, which is nice. So we will just go to our middleware folder. We'll make a protected.js file. And inside the middleware, you have access to the CTX context object that Next makes available to you. And that basically just means that we have access to the state, the app, kind of everything you need. So whenever we call this protected middleware from any of our pages, it's going to run the function. This is the context that we have. And we're saying if you're not logged in, that's what that means. If you're not logged in, we're going to redirect to the login page, and it's going to say you must be logged in to view this message. That's the message, and we're going to also put in our query the redirect. So that's actually a really nice feature. What that means, well, we don't have a way to log out yet, but I'll show you how that's nice when we can log out. In fact, let's do that next. We need the ability to log out. So we're going to go back to our server.js file right here. And we're going to add another endpoint for logging out. All right, and we'll put this right below the login function. So when you go to API/logout, we're going to update the session variable to say that it's no longer logged in, and we're just going to set this to an empty object to clear it out. Then we want to refresh the token so that we can, we just want to get the existing token, and then we can use that token to delete it. So it's nice to be able to delete your tokens because they sometimes get too many on your server. So a good way to do it is that. All right, so now we need some way to call these. So let's go back to our view. I'm just going to minimize that. So our layout, our default layout, we had disabled these, but let's go ahead and enable these now. So when we reload, I don't think we finished. We didn't do the rest of this script in our view. So our view needs to import. We're going to want to import some data from our store so that we have access to who's logged in, etc. So let's grab that, and we'll just replace this. So we're importing map state and map mutations from Vuex, and you'll notice we're registering this. We just want access to the user object here, and we want access to the mutations. And again, all this is set up in our index store right here. You'll notice this is the state user, and that's the mutation set user. So go back to this. All right, so when you log out, it's just going to run that command, and then it's going to set the user with nothing, and then redirect you to the home page. So nothing too fancy. All right, so we're currently logged out because we've saved a few times, but now if we try to go to invoices, it's running into that middleware. It says, hey, you need to be logged in to do this. We're not. It redirects us and says you must be logged in to view this page. Once we log in, instead of just going to the home page or whatever, we're going to go to this redirect. So we're going to go to invoices. And we did. We got this logged in successful. And now, we can start seeing our data. Everything's working pretty good. Let's make sure log out works. Yeah, it's working great. And you can, if you just try to log in, it doesn't show that message. And see, this time it went to the home page instead of invoices. All right, we are making a lot of great progress. Let's take a look at these. We can sort all these. We have pagination. And that's just kind of all out of the box from Boofy, so made that really easy. Up next, we just need the details. If we click on this, we're not seeing any details. That's actually working already. So we can see the payment. We also notice that we are showing money signs here. I didn't really go over that, but we'll go over that really quick. Because I added this filter for currency, and up here in our balance, I'm just adding that filter to the end of it so that it filters it to look like currency. Right there. So it's a pretty simple filter. All right. Anyway, up next is the detail page. So it's going to be a little different. So the naming is very important to Nuxt in order to do kind of a lot of this for you. And so the fact that we're doing _id.view means that ID will be passed as a parameter to this function. So if I go to /1, it would know. See, it's going to try to render this component invoices underscore ID view, and only problem is we haven't really done anything in here yet, so it doesn't know what to render. Let's go ahead and just paste everything in there. It's very similar to the invoices one, so we won't go too in depth. But it's gonna not load anything yet because we haven't made this endpoint. So again, now we got to go back to our server index.js page, and we have an endpoint for invoices, but now we need an endpoint for the invoices details. Alright, we'll just do it right there. So yeah, so whenever we do a get to API invoices with :ID, so this means it'll be dynamic. Anything passed after this will be considered the ID, and we'll have access to it when we, right here, as a request param ID. And that's how we will interact with the API on FileMaker. So first thing we do is, again, we make sure that we're logged in. If we're not logged in, you just throw an error. Otherwise, we do the request to get the data. And then we do one last check. We make sure that the invoice that they requested, so we're grabbing the invoice user ID from what was returned. We're making sure that the user has access to it. And if not, we say, hey, this isn't your invoice, you can't look at it. So we saved that. Let's reload. Oh, it's currently rebuilding our server, and we got to log in again. All right. I don't know if. Let's do a hard reload. There we go. I don't know what that was. Okay. Alright, so let's look at this one. There. Hold it in. I mean, it's basically the same as our invoices page, just for invoice line items. So I know for a fact that invoice number 9 we don't have access to, so it says you're not allowed to view this invoice. Okay, great. Oops. Oh, I clicked back. There we go. Okay. Yeah, and that is, I think that's basically it for today. Obviously, there's a lot more we could do. There's a lot of things we could clean up and do better. But, this is basically just a tech demo, if you will, to show you what's possible and give you some ideas of how you do it. So we're excited to hear what people think. If you have any ideas or any suggestions, love to hear it. So thank you. Have a good day.